What is the most Texas thing about you?
The most Texas thing?
Like, you know,
Oh,
the stereotypical Texas thing.
I have a cowboy hat. It's in the closet. That's pretty Texas, I think. I got it at a wedding actually. I was filming a wedding and they had an extra cowboy hat for one of the groomsmen. Like, you want a cowboy hat? And I was like, yes, I do. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Nice.
And when I wear it, my wife rolls her eyes at me and is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm being Texan.
I'm being
I'm,
Texan.
What are you
I'm,
doing?
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
we are the Youngs.
And we have our very first virtual guest today.
He is in the
Hi.
computer in front of me, and you may or may not know him.
His name is Matt.
I was a little upset that you guys did not fly me out to St. Louis. That was an option. Like, give me a flight.
it
Come out
was.
there.
Waiting on the reward points on the credit card.
I understand that completely. Yes.
Matt, where are you? Where do you live? Where are you based at?
I'm down in Texas, like an
Okay.
hour south of Austin.
What is the most Texas thing about you?
The most Texas thing?
Like, you know,
Oh.
the stereotypical Texas thing.
I have a cowboy hat. It's in the closet. That's pretty Texas, I think. I got it at a wedding actually. I was filming a wedding and they had an extra cowboy hat for one of the groomsmen. Like, you want a cowboy hat? And I was like, yes, I do. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Nice.
And when I wear it, my wife rolls her eyes at me and is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm being Texan. What are you
I'm being Texan.
I'm,
doing?
the beard's kind of Texan too, though, right?
There's I feel like beards are pretty universal. There's
I
plenty
agree.
of bearded Texans. There's plenty of unbearded Texans. I feel like a mustache might be more Texan though.
That's true. A nice
yeah,
handlebar mustache.
like a Texas Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just looked up the other day what a Texas Ranger is compared to like regular police because I wasn't sure. And they're above the police. Did you know that?
They're like the ultimate. They can
They're
do it.
like-
They're like RoboCop.
They like run
Texas.
Texas. Yeah.
Do anything.
Yeah. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do?
For
Where do you
those that
come
don't
from?
know.
I'm Matt Johnson. As we said, I'm from good old Texas. I make wedding videos and babies and a lot of YouTube videos.
Woohoo.
And it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what came first, YouTube videos or wedding films?
Ooh, YouTube videos, actually.
Really? I did not know that.
2006.
I did
Ooh,
not
so
know
like
that.
right away.
Early, like right after Google bought them, I was uploading there, like my first videos.
Were you consistent with it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Really dumb videos. But then I got into the partner program like really early in 2007 and was making tens of dollars per month. So it was great.
So you could probably fill your tank up once a month back then.
Barely, if that. But that all changed whenever I made some I had my first viral videos. My brother and sister raised rabbits for 4-H. It's like a country like raise rabbits and for the fair, the county fair.
Oh,
They were, and then like the kids would auction off the rabbits and make like $1,000. I'm like, wow, I need to get into rabbits, but
getting rabbits.
only at the fair. That's where
Oh
you
my
make
God.
that
That's a
money.
Texas thing right there.
You want to know how Texas I am? Here you go. So I did not actually partake in the rabbit raising, but I did partake in the filming of these little rabbits, and I posted a few videos of them, and they went viral, and like 5 million views later on some of them.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Then I was banking. I think at peak I was making like 900 a month from like YouTube ad revenue, but I was like,
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
okay, cool. I can buy some
For
camera gear.
So how old were you
off
back
some
then?
bunnies. What were they doing in the video?
One of them that's still on YouTube, yo. If you
I'm
wanna
gonna have to
watch
go check it out.
okay?
Give it a view.
One of them, one of the little bunnies had some like straw stuck to its leg, so it couldn't move. My brother rescued it and like
Oh.
took some of the straw off of it. Yeah, that was the exact reaction of millions of people on the internet. Oh, the baby! Like, never mind.
Yeah.
It looks like a little naked mole rat. It's all pink and wrinkly. And then, like, the best part is that I get all these comments like, "Is it okay?" Like, full disclosure, sad story, but that rabbit died like a month later.
No.
But like the amount of comments from people like, "Is the baby okay?" And like for a while there, I was just like lying to people like, "Yeah, he's very happy. He's a very happy bunny. It's fine." I was like, "Ah, the baby's not." Like I don't. I have the heart to like break it to these people on the internet.
Then your viewers might go down.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Can't let word get out.
Can't let it happen. Yeah. So I think whenever I knew that things were really crazy was whenever I was looking at my analytics and I saw that I was getting a ton of traffic from China, and there was some Chinese forum that had picked it up, and there was all these like hundreds of posts of all these people talking about these rabbits, and I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. This is like pre-Google Translate, I think, like 2007. But I'm like, everybody seems to love these rabbit videos. So cool. International fame for rabbit videos. Great.
You know what? I follow a rabbit on TikTok, and all they do is ASMR of the rabbit eating.
Okay.
I love it. I don't know why, but I love it.
It's oddly satisfying to watch a rabbit eat a carrot.
There's also one that's like a panda,
Mm.
and he eats. I don't know. There's something about it.
The crunchies.
I get that. My wife's aunt and uncle had a tortoise named Speedy that was like really big. Like he was like 20 years old. Very satisfying to feed him carrots.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But also the knowledge that it could bite off your finger at any moment. So you got to be like,
oh yeah, turtles are vicious. Snapping turtles are vicious.
Yeah.
So, from rabbits, how did we get to bearded wonder Matt, wedding filmmaker and gear reviewer?
oh my goodness. I got into weddings because I bought a Canon 7D, and a girl in my class asked me to film her wedding, and I was like, sure, I kind of know what I'm doing. No clue. Sure, I'll film that wedding in 2010. Did that, really enjoyed it, so just kept doing that. And then like 2015 or so rolled around, and one of my friends who had been kind of teaching some video stuff, he's like, hey, you're really good at this. You should like make videos and help other people. It's like, okay, cool. So like I'll throw up like a random, so like, okay, I'll make a video about how to like a review of the Sony A7S II for wedding filmmakers. And that kind of took off. And I sort of realized that up until that point, I'd been making YouTube videos since 2006, but I had no consistency in terms of who my audience was. It was just me making random junk. So redialing, like if I'm uploading wedding videos, I'm going to upload educational stuff for wedding filmmakers. And that's just been happening for like 8 years now. And now a lot of people are like filming weddings and making stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you had to find your niche, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good way to push this topic.
Finding your niche.
Finding your niche.
Yeah.
We've done it, guys. We found the podcast topic. Thank
I
God.
think we found it. I'm sure it's probably going to change by the end of this, but we'll just go with this one right now.
Yeah.
Love it. Here for it.
Awesome.
So
go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you find that more of your clients find you because of your gear YouTube videos or your actual wedding film company? Because I know it's not the same brand. Like ours is all the same brand.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we've really like switched it over now to basically be the same brand. Like we haven't like the amount of traffic we're getting through like the wedding film production company is so low now. It doesn't really affect much. We'll still get referrals from people that we worked with back in the day that only know us through like the wedding company brand, but otherwise everything's pretty much through YouTube. And I did not anticipate that when I started making stuff. It was just, I'm just making stuff for fun. And then after a year or two, I started to get all these inquiries from people that were wedding filmmakers themselves. And they were like, hey, I'm getting married. I've watched, you've taught me how to do this. Like, I'd love if you could film my wedding because you know what you're doing. Like, that was usually it. Like, you seem experienced. Okay, cool. Like,
That's like the biggest honor, I think. Yeah.
For a wedding filmmaker to ask you to film their wedding?
Yeah.
the biggest honor, the biggest stress, I'll tell you that, because they're watching you now. Like, the whole time, like, they doing it right? They know what they're doing? You're like, kind of, hopefully. Yeah, here we go.
They're probably watching you to take notes, to be completely honest.
Oh, like, that has happened. I've been doing things like, wait, how are you doing that? Oh, you got that. Oh, that's cool. Okay, yeah, I need to get one of those. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right, yeah, you can do that. Sure.
Oh
I'm going to hire this person just so I can just like basically take notes and be mentored by them during my wedding.
You're paying me enough money that I'm okay with giving you my secrets here as well. Thank you. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many weddings do you shoot now a year?
It's gone down dramatically. Like it was, because for us, it was 2019 hit. We had our first child, which was wonderful. But also, like, when you have a kid, you have to like put the brakes on everything else just to be like, is this baby? Like, what are we doing? Especially for the first kid. So with my wife, Rachel, who always films with me, we basically realized we need to step back some from the amount of weddings that we're filming. Because at my peak, I was doing like 30 something a year and then back down to 20 something. And then around this time, we were doing like 15 to 20. And so we basically backed off a ton for like 6 months. Like we didn't take any weddings for 6 months after our daughter was born because we're like, we want to spend time with her.
Yeah, of course.
Then we filmed a few like late 2015, went to Ireland. It was so fun. So great. Loved it. And then early 2020 pandemic hit. And so all these weddings that we were like had booked already for 2020 were postponed or canceled. We're like, no, we're back. Like we want to film weddings. And it's like, oh no. Nothing's happening.
You can't.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to anymore. So I think we filmed 2. I think 2020.
Jeez.
It was like very little because it was like super small micro weddings or like the bigger weddings that like paid really well all got pushed back. You know, like it was a lot of these people didn't want to. They're like, I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars. I don't want a small wedding. I'm gonna wait.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. And so we basically were either film like super tiny weddings or big mega weddings. And so what started in 2020 was me realizing like, hey, if we're going to have this baby, I need to push more into YouTube so I have time, so we're still making income. Because at that point, YouTube had been kind of a hobby. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make more YouTube videos, hopefully make more money from that. And then that sort of continued. And then thankfully 2020 hit and the pandemic hit. And I was like, I have to sit at home and record videos all day in my studio, which I'm doing anyways. Okay, cool. So it wasn't a terrible shift.
Makes sense.
It wasn't awful. I was like, I still have an internet connection. Okay, that hasn't been affected. Great. Then we can keep this train going. Okay, cool. So we kind of just kept going with that with YouTube. So now 2021, like the weddings were postponed, were either happened or were canceled. But then we're still taking like 10 or less. And so we're like, okay, let's try to film like not as few as possible, but like, okay, let's get down to like, can we do like 6? Can we do like 5? You know, like just to a point where I never want to be out of the wedding game, you know, as it were, of like, oh, like I enjoy filming weddings. Like Rachel loves it. We love working together. I love these moments but also I feel like I have this sort of platform that I've built now of being able to help a lot of filmmakers. And so it's it's sort of a balance that I'm still figuring out, honestly, of how much weddings do I film versus how much do I create content for YouTube and like how that balances out.
Oh, I love that. The finding, I think we talked about actually this potentially being a topic too, because you're in it's essentially 2 different niches. Because wedding films, and then even though there's a little bit of crossover, the YouTube gear review type stuff, education stuff is a completely different niche.
And marketing to different people. Yeah,
and balancing that is difficult. I mean, we're doing that, but far different. Like the coffee thing with the wedding films, plus our studio, plus.
I would assume it's a little bit different for you because you don't, like you kind of already mentioned it, you don't necessarily have to market to get your clients. You get them from referrals and then they come from your YouTube. So that probably just makes things a little bit easier for you as a balance.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And the nice thing is too that the bookings that we're getting now are either from planners that we really like working with or couples that we've worked with in the past we really like that are like referring their friends or people that watch me on YouTube that really like me. So I'm not it's very rare. It's rarer and rarer now. We got an inquiry like last week from we got 2 last week from random people that like don't know who I am on the internet. They were just like, hey, send pricing. You know, you get that email like send pricing or like, hey, like we're just having this wedding, like a friend of a friend of a friend, like, hey, could you do it? And for us now, a lot of what I'm trying to do is sort of, okay, how can I tell a good story, but how can I really build a connection with these couples? And it's really easy now if they already know me from YouTube or if they're already coming from a planner that like I know and trust, then I can work with them all together. So it's definitely a shift. It's been a big shift.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that you're on YouTube and you want to build that connection, it's like, it's kind of taking the first part of the consultations out of it because they're not going to come to you if they don't think that it's going to be a good fit for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how many, do you have any weddings this year?
I had one earlier this year so far, and then I've got two for later this year, and then hoping we'll see if we get one more. So it's chilling out. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm still figuring out like, okay, like how is it going to be? I don't have an exact number of how many do I actually want to do versus not, but
Yeah.
still enjoy it. I still want to
Yeah.
do it. But oh yeah, that was the other thing. We also had another kid late last year. So put that whole cycle of, hey, we're not going to film weddings for a while because we have another baby.
Yeah.
So that also threw a wrench into this year too. So
Yeah.
Here we
So
are.
with your
How far out do you usually book weddings?
I would say it's usually about a year out. I
Okay.
feel like
Yeah.
people are booking earlier now because of the pandemic. Like you're getting inquiries like 2025 and you're like, maybe.
we have a meeting with a bride for 2025 this week. Next week.
But we also just got an inquiry for October.
Yeah.
So I think it's like
all
both
over
extremes.
the place. Yeah, it's all
Yes.
over the place for sure.
I think that we're still seeing the after effects of the pandemic, as it were. And you can tell me if I'm crazy or not here and if there's been y'all experience, but I've talked to a decent amount of wedding filmmakers now, either that emailed or commented or booked like a coaching call with me or in one of my courses or something like that. And they're all saying like, hey, like bookings are down this year. They feel like bookings are less. They're not happening as much. They're like, what's happening? Like, normally there's a steady flow and like it's been,
Yeah. Dry.
it's been more chaotic. Like you said, October 2025. And
It's
you're like,
quite literally been a famine.
yes.
Yeah.
The first half of the year was like that.
Yeah.
And then it picked up
Yeah.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
In June,
For us.
people started
Good.
reaching out.
And
We
that's
booked-
what,
Like
Yeah, I've been seeing
6
that
in a
happen.
week
Yeah.
in June.
okay. I talked to, I think it was Jason McCutcheon from the Wedding Film School about this. And he was basically saying that his theory is that a lot of these couples just didn't, like 2020 hit and the pandemic hit and people just weren't falling in love. Like people were just in their houses, not dating, not falling in love. Like not enough people have fallen in love. Like, which
Yeah.
is such a weird concept. But
Yeah.
That's I hadn't thought about it like that.
We're
but
in the
that's
love business.
True though. Yeah.
yes. So literally like 2020 hit, whole year of people not dating, not in the
Yeah.
dating pool, like not building, at least not in the dating pool to the point of I want to marry someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're not there because a lot of couples are dating longer and longer now too, from what
Yep.
I've seen. Like it's not okay, full clarity here for the Bible Belt down here in Texas. It's still a lot of like, I'm 18, it's time to get married, or like I'm graduating college, I have found my wife or husband, now I'm getting married. Like it's a very,
Or you date for like
Very-
6 months and then you get married.
exactly. It's still a very quick turnaround. Which I know is different in other cities, especially like LA or New York or something like that. It's like, we've been together 6 years. Like we finally decided. And it's like, okay, which is fine. But the pandemic hitting that has just put more of a wrench in things. So literally like people not falling in love has led to 2021 was a crazy spike of bookings. And then 2022 was still the leftovers of that, of everybody that postponed even more. And now 2023 hits, especially at the beginning, people are like, where are the weddings? Like what
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd
Nobody's
be
in love.
curious to see at the end of this year, like what the actual economic impact was from 2022 to 2023, because 2022 was the boom, like the peak of post COVID. And then this year has definitely been the lull for multiple reasons. That's a really good reason actually. And then the economy and all that stuff. But I'd be
Yeah.
curious to see how much of a dip the industry as a whole took.
Yeah.
Well, I will add too, like with normal markets, like that are not the wedding industry, like there are booms and busts. It goes up and down. Like there's
yeah.
highs and lows, things people are buying more, they're selling more. But with weddings, like weddings as a whole have been pretty darn consistent because it's the love business, as it were. Like
Yeah.
people, they're gonna spend money on a car, they're gonna spend money on a house, and they're gonna spend money on their wedding.
Yep.
And so wedding videographers were kind of insulated from a lot of these other market issues. But now, nope, pandemic can actually disrupt that. So
Yes, it can.
you're going to, like, the waves are still flattening out. And then I think it's still going to be good, consistent bookings. It's just 2025, maybe whenever that finally happens.
I think it's also like people are really taking their time making decisions, which I I don't know, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I think that it should take a significant amount of time to make this decision because it's a big investment and it's at a very important day. You want to make sure you're hiring someone who knows what they're doing. But Alex mentioned like we booked like 6 weddings in a week, like a couple weeks ago. And I went back and looked what the turnaround was from the date that we got the inquiry to the date that they signed the contract. And all 6 of them took 4 weeks to make that decision. 4 weeks.
And so pre-COVID, like we would have our consultation call with them and we'd say, we'll hold the date for 3 days.
Yeah.
And we'll open it back up. And most of the time,
by the end of the day, they'd be like, we want to book.
They'd know within that time frame.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been like, I'm really going to think about this decision but that also could have to do with the fact that our prices are much higher than they were then too.
That's true.
So people are spending
I think that's
far
a
more
factor.
money.
Yeah.
But bigger, I would say still the factor is that they've seen a lot of their, like, even though they were not getting married, they've seen a lot of their friends get married.
Right.
And they saw their friends have to go through the hassle of, I had to cancel, I had to postpone, or I had to move something. And they're like, I'm going to be a little shyer about spending this money yet.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So since you're taking on less weddings now, and you're not in any way getting out of the wedding business, you've said that, but what would you say has been like the highlight of your career so far within the wedding business?
Within weddings.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. That's really good. If we're talking about like specific weddings, because that's where my mind went first, I would say like I filmed this like mega 5-day wedding in California with this couple, Monica and David. And like Monica and David, they've both like filmed weddings before. So they were like super engaged and just like so fun, so crazy, so wild. Like you end the week and you're like, what just happened? Like this has been insane.
Yeah.
But at a bigger level, a grander scale, I would say that like that wedding was also perfectly encapsulated like what I wanted my business to be and how I wanted it to be. And like, it isn't about the money or it isn't about like anything financial. It's about like, can I build this really strong connection with this couple where we have like an amazing rapport and they're being fully willing to be open about like everything about their relationship. Like, here's our highs, here's our lows, here's how things happened, here's how things like didn't go well. And then we're able to sort of craft a story around that through seeing how they interact. So the wedding film had like these sweet moments and these crazy moments, and it was back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's just really, really fun and really, really great. And so that's still like one of my favorite wedding films that I've made to date easily.
So it was more of like you had almost like a week with your ideal client and it probably inspired you, and we've definitely had those. I can definitely relate to that.
Is that the longest like time frame for a wedding week? Well, weekend is usually what we book, but like 5 days of one wedding.
That was the longest. We flew out one day and scouted, and then the next day they did whitewater rafting. The day after that we did an adventure shoot in the morning and the rehearsal dinner at night, and then the wedding was the next day.
Nice.
So was that 4 days, 4 or 5 days? I don't know. Yeah, it was still like easily the longest I've done, which I know that there are like Indian wedding videographers. They're laughing right now. Like, only 3 or 4 days. What a short wedding. You got to have like a whole week. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we have yet to do an Indian wedding like that. I think the most Indian wedding we've done is it's always been
2 days.
2 full days.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that film up on your YouTube channel?
Yep. It's up
We'll
now.
have to go.
We're going to put that in the link
we'll
in the
link
comments
it.
below.
Yeah.
So,
Watch it. There you go.
and the rabbit video if we find it. We'll put that in there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I will tell you, there's a 3-part behind the scenes video for that wedding. It was just like, it was a lot of just.
How long ago was that? I feel like I might have seen that.
The wedding was in 2021, but I didn't get the BTS out till earlier this year, just because.
So
there's probably a lot
with those things.
Yeah. I remember you posting the BTS. So yeah, because the whitewater rafting kind of rang a bell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you would say, is there anything else that like, comes to mind for you that's been like a pinnacle of like your
not necessarily a specific
filmmaker?
wedding, but just like an experience within that world?
Yeah.
I do think that one thing that struck me, especially more recently, is just how small like the filmmaking world is and the filmmaking community is. And it's just this weird thing where I know like a good amount of filmmakers now, and there's so much overlap between everyone. And it was this is all encapsulated with my brother just got a job for a city in Texas making videos for like the city, and because he's a filmmaker too, filmmaking family, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, it was funny because I had a mutual friend, or I had a friend that lived in that town, and so I texted him and I was like, hey, yeah, like my brother just got this job working in your town, and my friend's like, oh, that used to be my job, and I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, his boss is this name, and then this is his coworkers, and I was like, what? And it's just this weird like
Small world.
yeah, and it just keeps happening where like people literally like people that I looked up to for so long and like that have that like have really shaped me as a filmmaker. I'm now seeing them working with other people that I've met in completely different circles, and we're all like, everybody's just. I'm just like, is this normal? Like, it's just very small.
Yeah.
And to add to that, I like the fact that it's small. It doesn't appear to be small because you look at like the wedding videographer Facebook group is like 30,000 people or something like that. I haven't looked in a while, but it seems like it's just an infinite number of people. But then in retrospect, it's like it's not, because like the top people in the industry, like you guys and White and Reverie and the Rev and all those, everybody's so accessible. And if it was any bigger than that, I don't think it would be that way.
Yeah. And I would also say, like in Facebook groups and stuff like that, there are consistent people who are commenting and being a part of the group. And so I feel like those are the people that you obviously make a connection with. And then, you know, like 20,000 of the others are just chilling, like, you know, but I would definitely agree with that. It's like everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And I feel like for us, it's like that with music in St. Louis as well.
Oh, for sure.
The music and the worship and church scene down here is like, if you know somebody, chances are we have like multiple connections.
We
with
just
the same
talked
people.
about this last night, actually.
Yeah.
Like, there was a newer band that was filming a music video last year, and I was on Instagram and I saw them doing stories about it. And I'm looking at the people in this video and I'm like, I know like 7 people in this video, from the people like playing the music to the people recording the video for it, all from like 4 different parts of my life.
It's weird.
And they're all on this one thing. I'm like, that's
all there.
wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the opposite side of what I asked you, what would you say is some of the most challenging things that you've experienced in your career?
And what did you learn from them?
Dun, 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 dun. Well, if we're talking about like weddings and challenges, one of the biggest transitions that took me a while to figure out was, and this would tie in well for y'all, I think, as like a husband-wife team, is I had pretty much dedicated second shooters that helped me for the first 5 years of my business.
Has your wife always been one of those people?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
We might have to get into that in a minute.
Yeah, there you go. Like I was already filming weddings in 2010 when I met her.
Okay.
And then it was always just like, hey, when you started, we were friends, and like I was filming weddings, we were dating, and she was always just like, oh yeah, you're filming weddings, cool. But it wasn't until like 5 years later where my second shooters that I had sort of grown from them, neither of them being expert filmmakers at all. They were like brand new, and I was pretty new too. I was just a little ahead of them, but I was teaching them. One of them like ended up moving out of state and like now lives on like a farm and has like tons of kids. And I'm like, that's great, good, awesome. The other one is now like making TV shows for the Discovery Channel and like other stuff. It runs like a very successful production company.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I'm like, they've grown up. I'm so happy. This is great. Okay, cool. And like, there's filming just cool stuff. And it's, I don't know, it's funny. Like it literally last week, one of my second shooters, Taylor, great guy. He, there was this wedding filmmaker, Joe Simon, and we always used to idolize him back in the day, like early 2010, 2011 wedding filmmakers. And know, like he was like one of the OGs, like one of the best, top talented wedding filmmakers out there. And so we always idolized the guy, like to the point that I remember, like when I was in my first year of filmmaking, I was like, hey, like I emailed him, cold emailed, you know, hi, if you ever need any help, I'd love to help. Like I got a very nice
shot.
Yeah, I got a very nice reply of no, but thank you. Like
Oh my
it was
God.
very
At least
clearly
he
a no.
responded.
Yeah, it might have
A
been like
lot
one
of
of
people
his
don't.
employee. It might have been like one of his minions that did it. It was like
Yeah.
he had
Gotta
a whole
shoot your shot
team.
though.
Yeah.
Had to shoot it. Had to shoot it. And so it's funny because I remember that I didn't meet him like in person till years later, and I was like, "Hi, hello," nice. I was freaking out. Um, but it was funny because we really idolized this guy, and we were always like, "Oh man, like Joe's making killer stuff." And then literally last week, I saw that like Taylor was filming something, and like he was directing, and Joe was DPing for him, or I think, or something. It was
Oh my
literally like
gosh.
this flip of just like, oh my gosh, like we're working with our idols now. This is amazing.
That's so
Wow.
cool.
That's
awesome.
cool.
But tying it all back to like a challenge was like after 5 years, they both of them flew the nest, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh crap. And it was very like within a year, so it was very kind of stressful there, like both these people leaving. But it was also at that point where Rachel was tired of. She was a teacher at the time, and she was getting really tired of teaching. All of the burnout reasons the teachers give for why they leave, she's like, I'm experiencing all of these. I need to get out. So, and I was also getting to like travel a ton and see all these cool places. And I was only, it was like she was working during the week, I was working during the weekend. Like we didn't see each other as much. Like it was sucked. So basically that all ended up with her being like, well, you could teach me how to make videos. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yes, I can. Let's do that. Okay. So do like a year-long trial by fire of teaching her, getting her set up, like getting her working. But it was also in the transition of like my second shooter's not really being as available. So it was just sort of a
Yeah.
just stressful. But then it all worked out. And like it's funny because like as far as like really, really hard, I'm very thankful like to God more than anything that he's really taken care of me, and I've never had any moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, my business is in ruins, or like everything's falling apart. It's all terrible. Like I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And
We've had that
I think
conversation before.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm very thankful. And I think it's entirely God and entirely me being paranoid to like have a ton of backups for things, and always like, okay, if that doesn't work, then this will work. And this is like for if anything goes wrong at a wedding or something like that. Thankfully.
Yeah, that's great.
Being
And
able to
that's
adapt.
kind of how we are too. Have you ever had, this is a hot take, have you ever had anything crazy or made maybe a mistake that you're like, oh shit, but then nobody knows because you fixed it or later, or like
or we're able
it
to
worked
cover
out?
it up somehow and
Yeah.
still made you got what you needed done still.
Oh man.
A whoopsie. We'll call it a whoopsie.
A whoopsie.
We all have whoopsies.
all that we've all been there.
Oh man, I had a bad one.
I will tell you the reason that I'm so paranoid about cards is my second year of filming weddings, I think it was. I was shooting with my second shooter, like filming this nice wedding called Station Tex, is real simple. Totally forgot to copy one of the memory cards after the wedding day. Like just completely forgot. Thankfully we changed like at the reception. So I basically lost all of like the second angle of like the exit and like some of the dancing. And so I was able to make it work with one angle, thank God.
Yeah. So
But it was still, like,
you had a backup.
I did, but it was
Redundancies.
still exactly. That's where the oh good, I was able to save this
Yeah.
came in.
Yeah.
So
Now I can think of two.
Yeah. Alex kind of has a
I
similar.
had one, but then that story just reminded me of another one.
Yeah.
oh good.
That one was so we have had the same second shooter since 2021. We're on year 3, but prior to that was actually his brother is who was our main, and then he ended up
Keep it in the family.
exactly.
Love that.
So he shot. I was on Black Magic at the time, and he was shooting on an Ursa, and probably unnecessary to know that. But
No, I like mega cameras that are just
That thing is a
massive.
monster.
I think the fact that the camera's so big is what makes it so funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have the ceremony because they didn't do a first look or anything, so we did everything after the ceremony. We get to the park where we were doing photos, and he's like, "Dude, I left my camera at the church." And the church is locked up, closed down. Nobody's there anymore. Luckily, I had my third camera that I'm like, here,
gosh.
just shoot on this, and we're good.
Yeah.
So the next morning, Veronica drives while I'm at church to this church to get the camera.
Yeah. I'm
We're
like,
great.
surely they're open at
But
Sunday.
because of my workflow, I get home from that night and I immediately dump cards. And then while I sleep, it's backing up to another hard drive. Cool. Well, the next day I have this other camera that I'm like, okay, when I get to work this week, I'm going to dump this card. I don't remember anything about that week. And I obviously did not dump that card.
Obviously.
So he comes and picks up his camera. I'm like, yeah, you're good to format that. We're good to go.
Never dump the card.
Never dumped the card. The camera had all of the guys getting ready, that angle of the ceremony, and the letter reading from the guy,
Yeah.
from the groom.
So Alex
I
edited.
had the audio for it.
Yeah, he edited
So,
it
okay.
in a way that like we were able to use the audio of the groom getting ready, which we broke a rule and didn't actually show him speaking, but it kind of worked.
I don't
And
always do that anymore either.
there was
though.
never
Saved
a
it.
question about it. Never a question about it.
And then the other, probably the worst thing I ever did was double punched the processional for a ceremony on my main center angle.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. That's like now
That is why you have more cameras.
since that has happened, and me and Alex stand up at the front together, and so I'm like, "Are you recording? Are you sure? Are you sure?"
You sure?
That's another reason I don't like the R7 because it was on the R7. It's recent. That's a recent one.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
And
it's-
it's because there's a little dot that flashes every couple seconds, and then there's a little thing that the circle turns into a square, but that's it.
Yeah, they need to make the whole
needs to be
screen
more-
like red.
More
Yeah.
known.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I like about the A7S III. I got to go in right here, and it gives you a red bar around the entire, like
Yes.
a red border around the entire
That's
screen.
what
Like
this
this is
needs.
recording, and I'm like,
That's what
thank God.
Jaren's does that,
Yeah,
and I
Jaren.
freaking loved it.
Well,
He's
it's
like,
because it's Sony.
Canon doesn't
right?
have that. I said no, Canon doesn't have that.
It's because
My
it's
C70
Sony.
has a red light on it,
Hey, you get your tally lights. That'll work too.
but I
That'll
turn
help it
that
out.
I turn that off for weddings though, because if I'm shooting if I'm filming, I don't want to say I'm shooting
Mm-hmm.
the couples. If I'm filming the couple, I don't want them to know I'm recording because sometimes they act different
Yeah.
and it's not as natural.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we had for this.
What's the biggest piece of advice for two-part question for somebody that wants to get into the wedding world as far as photo, video, the visual side of it? Part two is what's the biggest piece of advice for somebody who wants to jump into YouTube? Because you've been
I thought you were
successful
going to
for
ask,
both.
like, what's your advice for getting out of the wedding industry? Like, oh crap! Like, good luck with that.
yeah.
What's your
Can't get
exit
out.
strategy?
Yeah.
How you leaving this? What are you doing? No, I'll say, like, if you want to get in, like, the biggest thing, as we've already talked about, is all connections. Like, it's all
Yes.
people, it's all relationships, it's all connections. Like,
Yeah.
the faster that you can build connections with other videographers, with planners, with photographers, with building these relationships now, the better. And
Genuine.
yes,
Genuine connections.
if it was me and I was getting started from nothing, that's like the main thing I'd be focused on. It's not
Yeah.
like I'd be like filming some free weddings, but I'd also be working my butt off to like build connections with other people and like start getting paid weddings out of that.
i.e. second shoot for people to build those connections and get experience at the same time.
1,000%. Great. And then you'll actually get paid some too. May not
Yep.
be a lot, but you'll still get paid. So
Yeah.
that's good. And then what was your second question? I've already blanked on it.
Same question,
because-
but YouTube.
YouTube.
For
I mean,
YouTube?
I feel like
yes.
like when you started and like that was like the prime time to be on YouTube. I feel like we're kind of in a second phase of that right now with podcasting and YouTube and stuff where if you do it right, you can be extremely successful. How do you do it
It's
right?
definitely become more of like a business now, like almost like it's sort of like people are treating it more like a job. And it was just a fun hobby 5 years ago, 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Absolutely.
As far as like how do you get started on YouTube and stuff like that, the biggest thing an issue I've had with most people, and I think the reason I've been successful is because I was willing to do it for a very long time.
Yes.
And there was I think it was a podcast interview of an author that I was listening to, and I do not remember her name right now, but it was a woman. I do recall that at least. But her entire stance was basically you have to be willing to toil in obscurity for 10 years before you have overnight success. Because that is what overnight success is. It's 10 years of toiling in obscurity before you suddenly you're like, wow, you're famous overnight. Like you've
Yeah.
blown up. For me, I started YouTube in 2006. I did not see success with YouTube in terms of like growth and viewership and like growing in my niche till 9 years later.
Yeah. And I feel like,
the end.
yeah. And
Long game.
I feel like it's the long game, especially with YouTube. Because now people get on TikTok and it's like you can get virality overnight. And if you're consistent with it, you can grow a huge following, but that doesn't quite relate back to YouTube or even Instagram at that point.
Yes.
So it's like you're in it for the long haul.
That goes with literally any industry, though, in anything. What you see people rise up from like out of nowhere, but what you're not seeing is the years they spent to get to that point. And at the end of the day, as long as you're consistent in those, all you got to do is outlast your competition.
Yes.
Because if you start at the same time as all the other people in 2006, how many people that you were starting with are there 9 years later?
Not many.
Yeah,
Not many.
exactly.
And there's a lot of new people, but it's also, I don't know. I think it's the book of Proverbs, or it was a business thing that I was doing. The guy was referencing Proverbs. But anyways, there's a verse, and don't ask me to tell you what verse it is right now. Okay. Do not know numbers, but it essentially, the gist of it is that if you gain your wealth quickly, you're going to lose your wealth quickly.
Yeah.
But if you grow it over time, you will keep it.
Yeah.
And
Patience.
it's a lot of patience and a lot of like, hey, I'm going to build this for 10 years. Like you got to go into it with that mindset. You can't go into it with like, I'm going to try for a year. And if it works, it works. Because the amount of friends that I've had over the years, they're like, oh, I need to get into YouTube. Or like, I have 5 people I can name off the top of my head right now that are good friends of mine that are still to this day like, yeah, I need to start doing that YouTube thing. I need to get on that. I'll start it soon. I got to start my podcast. Like until you actually do it, doesn't matter.
Right.
And you have to do it for a very long time.
Consistently.
Consistently.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So just do that.
I love
Just
that
quick
you
10
said
years.
that as a person that's already successful on YouTube, because I see videos, I get hit with videos all the time on YouTube about grow your following to 100,000 in 30 days. And I'll watch them just to see what they have to say. But I'm like, it really just comes down to consistency over a long period of time. Those two things are going to be what make or break you at the end of the day.
Yes.
When was Jenna Marbles like huge on YouTube?
Like immediately.
What year was that though? Was that like
That was
2006?
still early. That was still early YouTube. I think she was a little bit later than that. It might have been like 2008, something like that. But there are YouTubers that I watched back then.
She's
you know.
retired.
Yeah.
And I loved her. Like I loved her. I watched her entire career, and I watched her progression and how she changed like dramatically and grew up basically on YouTube. And by the time she stopped filming every Wednesday, she was a completely different person than when she started, because she was kind of an asshole. But then she got a lot nicer. Well, I'm sure she was nice the whole time, but like it changed a lot.
Yeah.
But it made me think of her when Alex mentioned like even you outlasting the people that you started with. Because I feel like she might have been in that era.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even do it anymore.
She like doesn't do anything social media anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot.
She
There's
doesn't
something
need
to be
to.
said. You make your money, and if you're like, you do whatever you want. Like you wanna retire, you can retire. And a lot of people, especially social media, they're like, no, you're in the spotlight. You want that? No, it's okay. You can quit. Like,
And I feel
go live
like
your life.
as much as like people like her have built her platform, and that's all she did was show her face online to millions of people every day, all the time. She's like a ghost now. And I would probably do the same thing if I was in her place.
I mean, that's I think I speak for all of us. I would say that we all do this for the freedom. We're looking for the freedom for our time, for just so that we don't have to put energy into everything and work until we're 70. We want to get to that point and say, you know what? If I just want to be done, I'm able to live the rest of my life. I'm done. And I can spend time with my family. And
I think wedding videographers do need to have that, especially wedding videography. Like if we're talking YouTube, you can like there's people at 80 years old sitting down in front of a camera like hello, and they're just
that
like
is
I'll
so
watch
true.
them.
Yeah.
But like Joe Rogan's gotta be like 90, like hello, how are you? Just like doing this podcast. Like who cares? You're sitting in a room. You're fine. You're in air conditioning.
Yeah.
But like I do think that wedding videographers, like you need to have an end game there and planned out, because
And
you're gonna
photographers.
get like weddings are tiring. And
I was
like-
just talking about this yesterday. I'm like, I was talking to my sister about it. I'm like, I'm not going to be shooting weddings when I'm 60 years old. Like, I'm just not. And she's like, you could do it. I'm like, but do I want to? Like,
I mean,
no.
I would love to be able to, but like physically, I mean, in the 5 years that
God
we've
willing,
been doing
but-
this, I mean, this year even, just we've been going to the chiropractor 3 days a week because I'm so jacked up in my back. So like it takes a toll, and you're gonna wear down and just not physically be able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a young man's game or woman's game.
Yeah. How old is Ray Roman? Is he in his like
he's
40s?
40s,
He's like 85 now, I think. now.
something like that. He's been doing this
No.
for 100 years.
And I think Jose
Nah.
Villa is like in his.
I think Jose V is in his 40s
in his
too.
40s, maybe.
Yeah, like
Early 40s?
There is a noticeable drop off, like when in your 40s and 50s, as
Yeah.
like you get up there, because it's a highly physically taxing thing for 12 hours.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's still gonna be people doing it, but if there's like a bell curve, the bell curve's in like the 20s and 30s up
Yeah.
here, and then it's like going down. Okay, so
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's what
That's where we're
Justin
headed.
Porter's got going for him. He uses that easy rig, but maybe he's onto something. He's going to be shooting
Awesome.
weddings forever.
Also, homeboy, is he 30? He might have just turned 30. It might be his late 20s. Like
Okay.
he's
Who?
he's young.
He's still young.
Who?
Justin
He
Porter.
has
Oh, just yeah.
whole life ahead of him. Okay, it's
He's
funny
only
'cause
30?
Yeah. It's funny. I'll do like coaching I'll meet a lot of like new wedding filmmakers. Like, I'm 17. I'm like, your whole life's ahead of you.
Yeah,
You can do
literally.
anything.
Yeah.
Man, if I knew that this is where I would be when I was in high school, I'd be that person when I was 17.
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
The more you know.
the more you know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
talk.
thank you for coming on our podcast, Matt.
Loved it.
It was so good to chat with you.
If you don't already follow Matt on all of the places,
Yeah.
you should, and they're linked in the comment. Well, I always say comments. Description. The little box above the comments.
Yeah.
Am I gonna have to post my own comment with my own links in there?
No.
Like, here's the links.
Well-
they forgot about them, but I
No.
got them for you.
I
We'll
mean, if you
properly-
want to, I'll pin it.
We'll
but
properly
I'll put it
link.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
Love
Where can people find you though?
I will tell you, if I was going to tell everybody to do one thing, if you really want to like be a part of what I'm doing and like know what's going on and all, I send weekly emails, and that's like the best way to keep up with me, because then I'm right there in your inbox showing up, and you don't have to
Yeah.
rely on the algorithm.
Yeah.
So if you want that, if you go to get.whoismatt.com, no, sorry. Yeah, that's it. Get.whoismatt.com. That'll put you on my email list. You can put your email
Got
in
it.
there.
Jump
Yeah.
on the email list and get all the email blasts.
Yeah, we'll link that as well as all the other places to hang out with Matt. So, well, thank you, dude. It was so good to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks
So
again.
fun.
Yeah.
Let's do this again sometime.
Next week. Perfect. See y'all then.
Same time, same place.
All right, that's it, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.